Welcome, sir, and thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, hi, good afternoon.
Well, it's an issue that has basically taken over, this al-Bashir matter.
Yes, this African Union summit was one of those very important summits that are supposed to discuss very important questions around economic transformation of the African continent, mainly around women and youth empowerment and around inter-Africa trade, the position that was supposed to be taken on the basis of a report by a committee of heads of state, and the position as well on Africa's position in the international discussions on the post-2015 development.
But also the United Nations, the reforms to the United Nations as Security Council, you know, the self-funding mechanisms for the African Union itself, yes. How to boost the African peer review mechanism. I mean, so many issues, but look where we are.
Yes, it has happened.
Al-Bashir.
Yes, it has happened, and it happened after an opening ceremony that really cast our eyes on the very important issues that we have to deal with, governance and political and development issues that we have to deal with. Then this Bashir issue comes up, and my own sense is that it's an issue that could have been avoided. It could have been avoided if South Africa did what it had done in the past, which was to maybe appeal to President al-Bashir not to come, citing the fact that South Africa is under obligation as a signatory to the Rome Statute establishing the International Criminal Court to effect the arrest warrant that was issued in 2009 and another one in 2012, and therefore avoid this dilemma it had, where it had to meet the obligations of the ICC, at the same time meet the competing obligations of the African Union, given its position that the African sitting heads of state should not be prosecuted. It's a dilemma we could have avoided if we had appealed to Bashir not to come.
Well, we're here now. How do we get out?
now that it has happened, we faced a serious dilemma to choose one of the two options, and whichever way you violate somebody,
damned if you
either
do,
you
violate,
yes, you violate, damned if you do, damned if you don't do, because if you carry the arrest warrant and you arrest the president, it's a huge embarrassment on the African continent.
I don't think it's an embarrassment. I think that's an understatement. I think we'll be gone, dead and buried in the eyes of the African
diplomatic cycles will be gone, and perhaps with that would be gone over 200 billion in trade that we have on the African continent. It might well be that there will be reactions that would say, to hell with the MTN, to hell with the Vodacom. As we saw a little bit of it when we had the xenophobic attack in South Africa, there were some who were saying maybe boycott South African companies, kick South Africa out. So if we effect the arrest, we have this huge political and economic clawback. But then again, if you don't do it, you then are also violating your own domestic law, which is the ICC Act in this particular case, and then you would also be cast in the image of a violator of human rights, or conniving or liking or loving al-Bashir and all of those things. So it's an invidious position.
But as the ICC is voluntary. The United States, even though they released a statement this afternoon condemning the presence of President al-Bashir here, yet they are not a signatory, to that, and we did so voluntarily.
Yes. That is why, in my view, just put the U.S. aside. It's a hypocritical statement. It says it begins that way. It says, though we're not signatories to the Rome Statute, we urge you to comply with the Rome Statute. It's a strange, it's a silliness, it's foolishness. I wouldn't take that seriously. But what I would take seriously is the fact that we have, as you said, voluntarily signed up to this Rome Statute, and we have domesticated into law. We have known the difficulties with it. We have known the groundswell of negativity about it on the African continent. Perhaps we could have avoided this by, if we needed to, withdraw from it well before we have this storm.
Well, an issue, for example, that is equally important is the plight of millions of Africans who are suffering under dictators, or because they just just have nowhere else to turn to, and the ICC is perhaps their only hope. How do we deal with that? Because that is missing in all these conversations that are going on right now.
And the reason why the ICC becomes hope in some cases is because many existing national and regional justice mechanisms on the African continent have been allowed to flounder. They don't have teeth. They don't have sufficient resources. They cannot function optimally. The African Court on Human and People's Rights should be a hope for many Africans who are being violated in their situations, but it is not actually happening. It is taking a long time to even try a case. It's been around for a long time, but it is not functioning optimally. And the African Court of Justice, which was part of the establishment of the AU, has not taken root. So in the situation where we have not built our own domestic and regional mechanisms, people have every reason to turn to the ICC, though it is very conflicted and it is very problematic.
Dr. Zondi, I'm afraid that's where we're going to leave it. Well, that's where we're going to leave it from the Sandton Convention Center, but do stay with us for throughout the course of this afternoon and the evening. We'll be bringing you all the news and views and opinions and analysis from the African Union Summit here at the Sandton Convention Center. For now, though, it's back to Cash in Auckland Park.